You've probably heard of Nikola Tesla, the genius behind our modern electrical grid. But that's just scratching the surface. Today we're digging into the future he actually wanted to build. A future of free, wireless, global power, and maybe even the ultimate defensive weapon. And we're going to find out why, the second he died, the US government swept in and declared his entire life's work a matter of national security. To really get to the bottom of this mystery, we have to start at the very end of Tesla's life, because that's the moment everything he ever worked on got locked away. Okay, so picture this. New York City, January 1943. Nikola Tesla, now 86 years old, is found in his room at the New Yorker hotel. He died pretty much alone, and he didn't leave behind a fortune in cash. Oh no, he left behind something way more valuable. Dozens and dozens of trunks, just packed with a lifetime of his notes, his diagrams, and all of his secrets. Now, here's where it gets really strange. Within hours, literally hours of his body being discovered, federal agents show up. They're from something called the Office of Alien Property, and they seize everything. But wait a second. Tesla was a US citizen, so why on earth would this wartime agency get involved? And why the crazy urgency for an old inventor the government had basically ignored for decades? Well, they weren't just there to clean out an old man's hotel room. They were on a mission. They were hunting for very specific, potentially world-altering pieces of technology. And right at the top of their list, something called his Teleforce weapon, which the newspapers had nicknamed the Death Ray. Remember, this is the middle of World War II. The tiniest chance that Tesla had actually figured out how to create a particle beam that could build an impenetrable shield around a country, well, that sent absolute shockwaves through Washington. So what kind of secrets could those papers possibly hold? To understand that, we have to rewind the clock. We have to go back to the one project that was so big, so revolutionary, that it was, in the end, just too dangerous for its time. See, while his big rival, Marconi, was busy sending little radio signals through the air, Tesla was thinking on a planetary scale. He looked at the Earth and didn't see a big rock, he saw a gigantic electrical conductor. His plan was to send energy through the ground, tapping into the planet's own natural frequency. This wasn't just about sending messages from point A to point B. No, this was a global power grid with absolutely no wires. And his tool for this incredible feat was the magnifying transmitter. You can think of it like a Tesla coil, but on steroids. It wasn't built to just radiate energy out into the air like a normal radio tower. Its job was to pump electricity deep into the Earth, creating vibrations that, in theory, could be picked up anywhere on the globe. And this quote from Tesla himself just says it all, doesn't it? He wasn't just building a machine. He was trying to play the Earth itself like a massive musical instrument. He believed if he could just match its resonant frequency, he could make the entire planet vibrate with usable energy. I mean, the sheer scale of that ambition is it's mind-boggling. And this was it. This was the physical embodiment of that dream. The Wardenclyffe Tower. A 187-foot-tall marvel of engineering out on Long Island, with this huge 55-ton steel dome on top. And underneath it, a shaft plunged 120 feet into the ground, with iron pipes going even deeper to literally grip the Earth. It was a monument to a future that only he could see. But you know how these things go. A vision that big, that revolutionary, it was bound to smash headfirst into reality. And for Tesla, that reality came down to one simple, brutal thing: money. And the end came so fast. First, his rival Marconi managed to send a signal across the Atlantic with much cheaper, simpler tech. Then Tesla finally fessed up to his main investor, the banker JP Morgan, about his real goal of wireless power, and boom, the money tap was immediately shut off. A stock market panic in 1903 was the final nail in the coffin, and by 1917, that magnificent tower was dynamited and sold for scrap metal just to pay off Tesla's debts. And this quote, supposedly from JP Morgan himself, gets right to the heart of the problem. It's the killer question. Tesla was offering the world unlimited, free, universally accessible energy. But JP Morgan's entire world was built on owning, controlling, and selling resources. You can't put a meter on free energy. An unmetered world was an uninvestable one. And just like that, the dream died. Which brings us right back to 1943 and those seized trunks. The dream of Wardenclyffe was long gone, but all the ideas behind it, plus his later work on weapons, well, they were now in the hands of the US government. So now the government has a bit of a problem, right? They've got this mountain of chaotic notes from one of the greatest minds in history, talking about a weapon that could literally change the outcome of the war. They needed an expert, someone who could tell them what was real and what was just science fiction. The expert they chose was this highly respected MIT engineer named Dr. John G. Trump. Yes, the uncle of the future president. So after a 3-day review, Trump comes out and says Tesla's later work was mostly speculative and that he couldn't find any workable plans for a death ray. Officially, the case was closed. But you gotta wonder, was that a genuine, honest assessment? Or was it the perfect cover story to classify the most sensitive stuff and take it deep underground? It took 9 years, but after a ton of diplomatic pressure from Tesla's family, 80 trunks of his belongings were finally shipped off to Yugoslavia. They were used to create the Nikola Tesla Museum in Belgrade. And that was supposed to be the end of the story. But was it? This is where the story takes another turn and gets really interesting. Because for decades now, researchers have been absolutely haunted by the idea that that shipment wasn't exactly complete. Almost right away, researchers in Belgrade started noticing gaps. There were holes in the collection, and that just fueled these rumors that have persisted to this day, that a few trunks, maybe 2, maybe 5, never left the United States. The ones containing the most critical secrets on wireless power and particle weapons. And you know what? The fact that the FBI kept some of Tesla's files classified for more than 70 years, that certainly doesn't help quiet the suspicion. So we're left with this incredible, tantalizing question. What exactly did we lose? What kind of future was Tesla trying to build? And what parts of it might still be hidden from us? I mean, just let your imagination run wild for a minute. What if JP Morgan had said yes? What if that tower had been finished and they had flipped the switch? What would our world look like today? Honestly, the implications are almost too huge to comprehend. A decentralized global power grid? That could have completely stopped the rise of the oil economy before it even started. And think about it, if energy isn't tied to one specific location, the resource wars that defined the entire 20th century, they might never have happened. He even talked about a global information network he called a world brain. That sounds a whole lot like the internet, doesn't it? Except he was dreaming this up decades before the first computer was ever built. And yet, here's the really cool part. His legacy is finally re-emerging. The actual Wardenclyffe site was saved by a massive crowdfunding campaign, and it's being turned into a new science center. Every single time you put your phone on a wireless charger, you are using a direct descendant of his ideas. And those FBI files that were finally declassified? Yeah, they confirm that the government's interest in his work never, ever truly went away. It feels like the future Tesla was building is finally slowly starting to arrive. In the end, Tesla's work wasn't really about towers or weapons. It was about seeing our planet as a living, breathing source of limitless, clean energy. He was trying to get the world to listen to the Earth's rhythm. And yeah, he was probably a century ahead of his time. But as we all search for our own sustainable future, maybe the most important question is this: are we finally ready to tune in?